I'm just making sure we don't have anybody hanging out in the waiting room still. I am letting everybody in, but I think we're almost there. I'll get started in just a minute here. Wonderful. All right, so welcome to our virtual workshop that kicks off our 11th annual Unglued Craft Fest Saturday day today. I hope you guys are ready to get dirty with some dirt today. We've got Baker Garden gifts here, but before we get started, I'm going to go over some hot tech tips and also let you know that in the description of this class is all the supplies you're going to need for today. That you could have gotten at Baker, or maybe you already had some at home. But just so you guys know, let's see, oops. In the top right-hand corner of your screen, there's a button that says View, and you can rotate between Gallery View and Speaker View. I'll be highlighting whoever is talking for you guys, like so. Ta-da! Now you see me, even if you didn't hit that button. But you can rotate between gallery and speaker throughout. So if you want to see everybody that you're crafting with today or see the instructor, you can choose that. Another hot tech tip is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, there's a little microphone icon. You can mute and unmute yourself there. You guys are all muted right now. But if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself if we don't see it in the chat, or if you just want to ask something really quick, that's where you'll find that is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And next to that is the video icon. So if you want to show us your beautiful face today or show us what you're working on or the end project, you can turn on and off your video in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen as well. This is recorded and we are currently live on YouTube right now. So if you need this in the future and how did we do this one part, we can refer back to that either on YouTube for the rest of the week, or you can email us and we can send you a link to the Zoom video. This workshop is just only 1 hour, so we'll be done by noon. So if you have any questions during the workshop, make sure you get them in the chat or let us know before the noon hour so that we can make sure that happens. Now, I'm going to introduce you guys to our instructor, Audrey from Baker's. She's teaching today. So I'm going to spotlight your video as I talk about you.
Ooh.
Let's see. Pew, pew, pew. Pew, pew, pew. Oh, there we go. Awesome.
Hey.
So Audrey is here to help all of you, both green thumb and non-green thumbers alike, to bring you good fortune in learning from our crazy, talented people here at Baker's in Fargo. And she is here to get dirty with you and make a vintage container really shine with some plants. So I'll let you take it away. Thanks, Audrey, for being here.
All right, thank you so much. I am thrilled to be the first person hosting the workshop today. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm so glad we could find a way to be safe together this year. Just real quick, personally, Unglued means so much to me. It was my favorite memory of all of 2020. It's right before things got absolutely wild. I taught a Kokodama workshop, and I am so happy and honored to be invited back here and teaching you guys another lesson today. So thank you very much for having me. Right, so thank you everyone who picked up a kit from Baker Garden Gift. We will just kind of go over the materials that were included in the kit and on the supply list as well, and each role that they really individually play in the containers that we are about to make today. So we are going to start with our small bags here. I have the colorful selection for us right now, and we will be playing with all three sets of colors. I have two other containers here with me as well that we will go over, but for the materials, everyone received 4 bags, and in those 4 bags are included moss, rocks, charcoal, and bark. So we're going to start with the charcoal. Today, charcoal is the first layer that we lay down in any kind of container. Since we are using vintage containers that were not intentionally made for planting things in, we need a little bit of supplemental materials to make sure the plants are comfy cozy in there. So what we do with the charcoal is we lay it down just a little base layer so that it absorbs any of the excess water and also prevents things like root rot and mold and just the nastiness from kind of forming at the bottom of our pots. I think it's one of the most important steps. This is activated charcoal as well, not just the stuff that you would find in your fire pit. It's going to be the stuff that you more use on beauty products and your face. So we have that. We also have the rocks and moss that come in a large selection of different colors. We're going to lay down the rocks first in most of these situations because the rocks are a little bit heavier. They just provide a little bit more stabilization to the soil, in my opinion. And then with the moss, this also goes on top of the soil, mostly just as decoration. But for a lot of plants that like a little bit more moisture, it's going to really lock in the moisture for them and share the humidity. Ferns really, really love living with moss. If you imagine that forest setting, kind of like how we're going to make today, they love that. And then bark as well. For me, this just adds a little bit of the foresty vibe again, but it also brings some nutrients as well. Eventually stuff that is organic like that will kind of degrade over time. So it's possible that it will eventually break down and kind of join the rest of the living environment in your planters. So these are our 4 materials. Again, we are going to start with colorful, and we are just going to be making our first very, very small one today. I will show you our 2 other containers. We sold the kits as 1 plant, 3 plants, and 5 plants. We will be making all 3 of these today, but starting with number 1 because 1 is the easiest. But one thing to point out with your container, some of them, most of them are very, very open, but some people also have these closed containers. This is just an old pickle jar actually, and anything that has a closed container like this, you just need to think about in a little bit of different terms. It's going to be covered, so it's going to be a little bit more humid in there. It's a really, really great environment for ferns and other really nice moisture loving plants. But if you do have a closed container that you are making, just kind of keep that in mind. I would use a little bit more charcoal while you are doing that. Since all of us have different planters though, we are just going to kind of work together and go across the guidelines. Just remember everyone that it is your project, it is your decoration, and whatever you make is correct and beautiful. So we are going to start out with this cute little cup today. This was, of course, just thrifted from around the store. And the plant that we are going to be using for this single container is the ever famous Pilea peperomioides. Some people call it the friendship plant, the pass around plant. There's really a lot of different names for this. Chinese money plant is one as well. And they are just so precious. They make a lot of babies, one of my personal favorites. So what we are going to do first is start with our bag of charcoal. And you can either follow along with me or you can do it after I have done it and all the steps are laid out. So open up our bag, and this is a rather small container, so we are not going to use the entire bag of charcoal here. Dip it out, and as long as you can't see the bottom, that's enough. Well, it's tipping now, but yeah, we got a decent amount in there. So, one material I did not cover, but I think we all are familiar with, is soil. I have this big old bin of it right here. And for this one in particular, we really only need a pinch. So just grab just a layer of dirt. I like to add a very small layer on the bottom just to kind of add something between the charcoal and where the roots will be. So now that we have that very small layer in there, it is time for our plant. So you're going to squeeze the edges of these. These are all 2-inch terrarium plants. There are quite the assortment around if you did pick up the kits. Yeah, so just squeeze the edges of this and turn it upside down. It should come out like this. And The way I like to repot plants is you can kind of see how it's taken the form of the pot a little bit. It's hard to see. Yeah, a little bit like that. But we're just going to kind of break up the roots a little bit here and make it a little bit more of a natural shape and figure out where we want to place it. So I like it really nice in the middle here. I chose this one because it has that very circular kind of feel. I like just putting it right in the middle there. So when you have it figured out where you want it to be, you take a little bit more of your dirt and cover up all those roots. Make sure all the roots are covered, otherwise they will not have access to moisture. And we all need lots of moisture. Remember to drink water, hydro homies. Plants are kind of the ultimate hydro homies, in my opinion. So let's see. Make sure that all of your leaves are above the soil. Anything green needs to have access to the sun. Okay, and now that he's safely potted in there, we are going to put the decor around him. Personally, yeah, I like laying down the rocks first. They're a little bit heavier, so they're going to move and fill in the cracks a little bit easier. This one, I'm just going to kind of shake out just a tish. And I always really like to cover the soil. That's just kind of my design style. It's the aesthetic, I suppose. And what I think I'm going to do here is going to go for more of a half and half kind of a look. So I filled up the first half with a little bit of those rocks there, and I'm going to fill up the second half with this beautiful little purple moss that we have here. Yeah, this stuff is really nice. It smells a little funny. Oh, I think I got some in my nose, actually. But yeah, give that a whiff before you put it out there. With these little 1 inch, or when you buy just the one plant, you probably won't be using all of the decor, and all of these materials are safe to put in any of your plants. So if you think that one of your pothos or monstera needs just a little bit of purple moss in it, it is perfectly safe to place in absolutely any of your plants. So yeah, I really like the colorful set. I think it adds a lot of vibrancy and really brings out the green as well. So this is our first little project here, all done. It is very simple. Yeah, and you can just see how that green really pops. Yeah, the purple provides a nice background, and it's just enough to really give this guy enough space to start growing. You'll notice that eventually when they are really soaking up a lot of water, it just seems like you cannot water them enough. That is the time to repot then. And when you pop them out, they're probably going to have roots along the entire way. They'll probably even be circling the bottom. It's crazy just how much plants grow. This is March, it's the beginning of spring, and we're really in the active growing season now. So any of the plants that you notice here, or that you pot up here, you'll probably notice they are going to grow a pretty decent amount. And then along with anything that you are planting today, please just remember to water them afterwards. Typically at the store, I call it a welcome home watering, but you're already at home, so it is just a home watering. I like to water anything that's repotted afterwards, just to really have the soil kind of settle into the roots, have the roots understand this is the new home, let's start growing. So this is our one beginner, and I am very happy with how that turned out. Put that right about there. Yeah, little friend hanging out. All right. If anybody has any questions, they can just enter them into the chat, and I will kind of try to check here and there exactly what everyone has to say. So I think we will get started on our second container now, and it's going to be a little bit more complex. We're going to have 2 more plants, and it is going to be our closed container as well. So this is our closed container, just our nice old pickle jar. I'm really glad that I had taken the lid off beforehand, actually, because it was a little tough to do that, and it would have been embarrassing to do that in front of all of you. So I'm glad that I can seem very strong today. So with this one, I have the plants in there. I had pre-chosen them yesterday. We had this selection of almost like 300 plants. I would say it was just incredible. If you follow us on Instagram, you have probably seen that on our stories, just how many plants we had and how many bags. Shout out to anybody who got their pickup kits from Baker. Thank you so much. We worked really hard to put them all together. So I will introduce you to the 3 plants that we have. Absolutely wild. I love the wiggly for it. And then we have a pink Photonia here. This is another really nice moisture loving plant. I have seen them dry out so many times. I'm probably responsible for murdering at least like 2 Photonias in my life, like in my own home. So let's hope we have a little bit of better luck today. I think they'll do good in a closed environment. And then finally, we have this heart fern that is right there. I think these are just one of the most adorable little plants. Sometimes we get them in 6-inch sizes here, and those ones are really, really nice as well. But the 2-inch, I really just have kind of a love for. So get our materials here. This time, we are going to be using the warm palette, and what that includes is this color of rocks and then some sphagnum moss as well. This one is a little bit wet still, so you can see the condensation on the bag, but I'll pull it out. This stuff, you may recognize sphagnum moss from orchids, or we make moss poles here. I teach those workshops as well. So it's a really good material to use for just a large span of a lot of different plant projects. And I learned one time that it was actually used as like a bandage in, I think, one of the world wars. And that was just really incredible. It's very antiseptic and whatnot. I have a degree in horticulture, not medical. So please excuse me if I'm using the wrong terms here. But what I can do is teach you about plants. So that's what I'll do. Again, we are going to start with our charcoal. We're probably going to be putting a little bit more in here. Let's see how much it will take. Yeah, I just put about the whole bag in there. Yeah, you just want to give that nice little layer on the bottom. Make sure that it is all covered up. And then something special that I like to do with these kind of containers when they have all glass on them is to actually add a couple of layers that you can see, since it's more like a window, you know? So I am going to use a little bit of my rock here. I'm just going to grab a handful of it. And put it on this side. And now you can see that we have a little bit of extra dimension here to our jar. I'm not going to go all the way around, but if you would like to do it, I would just place it kind of against the sides. It'll get a little bit more lost in the middle. So if you really want to add that layer, I would recommend putting it just around the edges to add a little bit more color and really make it more of a dynamic piece, you know? This one is going to be much more of a closed terrarium style. I really like to call them fernariums, actually. That's not copyrighted, so feel free to use it, but it's just a little term that I have come up with. So we're making like a little fernarium today. So with our rocks in place, we're going to add, again, that just very small layer of soil, just a pinch, and maybe another pinch to cover the other side. This is a little bit bigger than the last one that we were doing. Right, and here we go. And then you can see there that we can still see the rocks just a little bit, but it really contrasts with the charcoal. So I think what I'm going to do first is really play with the biggest plant that I have and kind of work everything around it. This is really going to be our centerpiece. So I'm going to kind of pop him out of there and really figure out exactly where I want him to be. So this one is really tall, actually. So whatever plant is the tallest, the biggest in your group, I always recommend working with that one first. I really like how the height comes up on this one, but I think it could just be a tish taller. So what I'm gonna do is take this out so it doesn't get too dirty. Whew. And I'm going to add a little handful of soil to really raise up this one side and make it more of kind of a levels art piece. So now that we have this, I'm going to make the little crater and tuck him in. Maybe I want him a little bit higher too. Always something to think about with your terrarium while you are making it is that don't just look at it from this top view, look at it from the side, because this is how you're going to be viewing it in a lot of different ways. One of the things I learned while I was in floral design in college was like a 180 piece or a 360 piece. And right now I think I'm making like more of a 180. You can see that I have the soil raised up more here on this one side. So this is really going to be more of like a front facing kind of a piece. So our little fern is going to sit atop as king of the mountain. Then I'm going to use the dirt to just cover up his roots as well. And typically I say try not to pack the soil, but when we're doing projects like this, it's not quite as detrimental to the plant to really have it packed around, especially with this guy kind of hanging up out in the air. Just make sure that all of his roots are covered with soil. So I'm just going to kind of press it against there. And he is all covered up. You can really see how this one is taking center stage. I wonder, oh, nope, I cannot show you a center down view because then that would really get everything in a tizzy. So you can kind of see how he's just sitting on the outside here. That's the back. Yeah, and something like that. Okay, so now for our other two pieces. These are going to be more of our lowland plants. And if this were a bowl or a different kind of container, I would recommend putting like the Photonia a little bit more downwind so that it has, it's really sitting in that spot where the most water collects and it can really get that maximum amount of moisture, you know? So I think I am going to kind of work with the same idea here. Just squish those sides, pop him out, and then kind of massage out the roots. This one has a little bit more of an intense root ball to it. So I'm just gonna very gently break that apart. That's something that we do because we don't want the plants to keep growing in that very tight formation. We want them to spread out throughout the container that we are planting them in. So I am going to kind of dig this into the dirt. And if it touches the charcoal, that is perfectly okay. It's all natural. It's all a part of the same thing here. Yeah. Ooh, lovely. And then I think if you're able to kind of see that extra color there, I really like where that one is sitting and how it leads up to this one here. And now I'm going to pack in his roots a little bit as well. Be very gentle, but make sure that they are covered. And then again, while you're placing it in there, it's especially difficult for ones that we're doing on this kind of tighter top down. Just remember to make sure to remove the dirt from the leaves. Otherwise, nobody can get any sunshine and then nobody can grow. That's one of the most rewarding things about plants. And I think especially within the last year, with us spending more time inside of our homes, is really that we've been able to watch the plants grow more than anything. I definitely have some that I got even while Baker was closed for a month last April that have really just taken off. And it just delights me to know that we have all come so far and that we're still growing and getting better. But that's just a personal note. We are going to finish off with our heart fern right here. Squish him out and he is just ready to pop out right there. So we're gently going to remove him, break apart the soil. Any excess soil that falls off is a good thing. And then our little jar here. I think we only have one kind of space left and it's right about there. So I think that is exactly where he's going to live. The heart fern has those really gorgeous, like curved kind of leaves. I think it complements the Photonia very well and provides really nice contrast to the blue fern. Once again, just covering those roots, making sure all of the leaves are exposed. And there we are. Okay, let me see how close I can get here. Yeah, you seeing it? Okay. So we have our pink Photonia right here, the blue star in the back, and then the little heart fern hanging out right about there. So this is the planter when it is all done up with plants, but without any decoration whatsoever. And you know, my favorite part is the planting, and some other people's favorite part is the decor, and both of them are very valid and worthwhile parts of the planting process. So I think, yeah, we'll use up some of our rocks here. And I am going to just do it by hand instead of just dumping the whole thing in there. It's a little bit more difficult to control then. So I'm going to start by putting the rocks in the lower area where we have the Photonia. Because the rocks are heavier, they will go down. It's really hard to put like a rock in the highest part of the terrarium because typically it will just, gravity will just take it down and it'll end up at the end of the hill anyways. So. Love that little clink clink of rocks against glass. It's a very cute noise. Yeah, we got a couple here. I think I'm gonna make a little bit of a line in between the Photonia and the glass. Make sure that none of your plants are too pressed up against the glass either. Then they'll just grow very wonky, and nobody wants to be wonky, you know? Okay. Yeah, I think that provides like a very nice kind of texture to go just right along with the Photonia there. So now, yeah, it's time for the sphagnum moss. And I think I am going to put that specifically around the heart fern. I think a lot of the soil is going to be covered with the sphagnum moss. Again, I really, really like just to have all of the soil covered, especially when we have so many good materials here. And I am going to use this, since it's wet as well, it's a little bit more malleable and able to kind of be put in some different places. So if you want to help pack around the roots of any of your plants, like the blue fern that we have here, just to kind of give it a little bit more extra protection and stabilization. Don't worry about it being too wet. Again, it hasn't been like that for too long, so I don't think anything nasty would happen in there. Something about closed environments as well is that they can develop mold. So I would just occasionally leave the top off. Obviously, we do really want them to be able to have that very humid environment that we are not able to provide for plants like ferns outside of like a glass container or something, you know. But we always want to get a little bit of airflow for our plants. I think that is absolutely vital. If you have had a plant that is just very watered. If you're kind of a heavy-handed waterer, you may have seen mold before growing on just the surface layer of the soil. And typically that's not a harmful thing. That's just something that happens when you have soil and water. But it's something to watch out for in closed containers because they are not getting a lot of airflow in there. So I would just say like once a week, maybe take the top off, and that will really help happening a bit. I really like to press against the like glass specifically. If you can kind of see what I mean, I think it creates like this really nice little layer right here. And I think I'm gonna put a little bit more on this side as well. Let's check. Okay, so let's add a little bit more of that. Oh my goodness. I went to Unglued Craft Fest yesterday, and it is almost like being in an art exhibit, the amount of like gorgeous plants that are there, and then all of the displays that they did, and then obviously all of the creators' artwork as well is just absolutely gorgeous. There's this one ZZ plant that's right in the middle that I've actually walked past at West Acres for a long time now, and I wanted to like meet her up close. It's the biggest ZZ I've ever seen, and it's sitting right over kind of by Rising Dawn Ceramics stand, if you would call it that. But there's this giant ZZ goodness. I just love the decor and the setup there. All right, maybe one more piece right around here. This is a little bit of a longer process, and it will be even longer when we do our next big container, you know, but it's always worth the time, in my opinion. So thank you so much for spending this gorgeous Saturday morning with me. I don't know about you guys, but there is nothing else in the world I would rather be doing than making these little containers with you guys today. So let's look at this. We have our little layer of rocks right there, and then I just covered it all. Ooh, can we do it? Something like that. We have our layer of rocks right here, and the moss all the way around it. Again, that just really helps to kind of lock in the moisture, and I think it looks a little bit more natural. Kind of provides this forest floor kind of a look to it. So now we are going to use our bark. Bark is really a lot for decor, but I love having the little pieces in there. I think it adds a lot. We didn't add it to our last one just because it's like just an itty bitty container. So this one I think will really pump it up. And you can put as many in there as you like, or as few as you would like. I personally like to do like a couple pieces at once and then maybe one over here. So we're gonna kind of make like, maybe there was a stump that's disintegrated over by the Fittonia here, and then maybe a branch fell over by the heart fern, and just really find some natural places for them to go. I think the bark really fits in with everything that the other plants are representing as well. And I really like the color pattern of the warm tones. I think this one is really gorgeous. Although I'm biased, I put them all together. I think they're all really nice, honestly. But this specifically with this kind of forest vibe and the ferns going on in there, I think is absolutely gorgeous. And then I'm just going to place a couple of the prettiest rocks from my bag kind of on top for some decor, some one-offs. Maybe they'll be kind of by that stump that disintegrated. And one silly one over here. I really like using the very little white stones. I think they add just a nice pop to wherever you need it. So if there's anywhere that you want to draw focus, white is a really great color to do that. I planted the bed outside of Baker, and for the last 2 years actually, but the first year I did it, It was nice. And then the second year that I did it, it was just white up in the front, and that's the easiest color to see from the road as well. So always remember just how powerful a tool white can be in your design. Oh, I'm so excited to plant again. That's one of my absolute favorite things. I live in an apartment, and it's really nice just to be able to get in some soil somewhere, you know what I mean? Especially in the ground. So this is our finished product. I will show you. I'm very happy with this one. You can kind of see how we made the different layers here, how the white stone, is it right about there, is really just highlighting kind of the center. The Fittonia really fits in with the sphagnum moss and the bark, and that green just looks so, so extra vibrant against the rest of that background. So I am really happy with how this one turned out. All right. If anybody has any questions, they can enter them into the chat as we're kind of between our projects right now. I'm going to just put the lid on this one. Nice little yellow lid. Everybody's looking really happy in there, and maybe he can sit right about there. All right. Wow, we have gotten 2 planters done this morning. I hope you all are feeling very productive and like you're getting a lot done. I definitely do. I'm having a great morning. How often do you water a closed container? That's a great question. I have one at home, like I had said, my little fernarium, and I watered that very thoroughly when I first got it. I always recommend watering thoroughly when you first get a plant. We had talked about that. And then after that, it's really not a ton. I'm sure plenty of you have seen that really big terrarium that's like its own ecosystem now. It's like the oldest one in the world, and he really doesn't do absolutely a ton to that. The thing about closed containers is that they're recycling the water a lot. So it really depends on how much sun that they are getting and how much you are opening the container as well. I have one at home with a cryptanthus in it that I probably watered twice since I got it. You're really going to want to hold back on the watering since it has nowhere to go except for evaporating out the top. I mean, when you water once, typically that's going to be enough for a little while. Okay, I will check the chat for any more questions here. Thank you for that question. Recommended to drill them. Here, let me try to pull up the rest of it. Oh, do I look like a grandma right now, not knowing how to use technology? Let's see, here's our chat.
The other 2 questions that are in right now is, do you recommend any fertilizer in your terrariums?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Typically, I had done one actually about a year ago, and the man had brought it in again, and it had grown so much, and that's just with like the very little watering that he had done. Typically in these kind of containers, I don't recommend doing fertilizer, especially at this time of the year, because they're going to grow so much anyways that they don't even need it. Any of your other plants though, now's the time to fertilize, just not anything that's in a container like this. And then did you know that other question? I can't get it to pull up on my phone right now.
It said, vintage containers don't usually come with drainage holes. Is it recommended to try to drill holes for drainage? And then another person asked, to be wearing gloves.
Do they need to be wearing gloves? No, absolutely not. Gloves is optional. This is just for me. I have very weak like nails, and I have a ring on underneath this. I just kind of prefer wearing gloves, but you absolutely do not need to. But back to the drainage hole question. So yeah, exactly. A lot of vintage containers are not meant to be planters, and they do not come with drainage holes. And actually, I had bought something from Nodakian, I believe, yesterday, and she has this beautiful pottery, and none of them had holes in them, right? So plants can live in containers without holes while being healthy. You really just need to kind of think about how much you're watering. Typically, when people come in with pots without drainage holes, I tell them to water about half of the size of the pot, and that should be enough. If you ever water too much and there's water sitting at the top, make sure to drain that out. But no, not every container needs to have a hole drilled in it. If you ever need a hole drilled in one of your pots, we have a drilling service here. We have diamond drill bits that we use. I wouldn't recommend trying it just with whatever you have on hand. I have seen it break before. So, leave it to the professionals and be very careful, but no, not every container needs a drainage hole. So, are there any other questions?
I don't see anything else in the chat right now, but if you guys do have other questions, oh, here's one more. Will Baker continue to have these plants available?
Yes, we will. We try to have terrarium plants all the time. They're pretty much something that's always available. It really depends. We get them almost weekly now, and they just come, let's see. They come as like this massive variety of all these little 2-inch guys. We got some really, really fun ones. A couple of people like requested certain plants, but yeah, we always have terrarium plants available. They are $4.99 individually. There is quite the discount for Unglued, but they all come in these nice little 2-inch planters, and there's always quite the variety available. Yeah, okay, so this is our final container here. If anybody remembers what these are called, type it in the chat, because I remember my mother and grandmother making like cakes in these containers or something like that. But I had found this one thrifting, and I thought it would be perfect for a 5-plant container. It's got plenty of space to go in here. So we are going to start planting up. I got a little bit of dirt in here, so I'm gonna, what is it called? Trifle bowl. Yeah, that's what it is. Thank you very much. Yeah, trifle, that's what she had made. My mother was quite the baker, but yeah, so now that we have our clear trifle bowl container, we are once again going to start with our charcoal. And for this one, I have the Cool Tones. Giant brandy. Oh man, I don't think that would be safe. Yeah, so with our charcoal here, I think we're definitely going to use up all of our charcoal. And something you'll notice about this shape when we get going, let me do this here, is that it's all going to kind of collect at the bottom. But that is okay because that's where all the water is going to go anyways. But if you have kind of a funny shaped bottom like this, I would recommend just spreading it out a little bit more so that it's not just in one big mound at the bottom, just to have a little bit of a more even layer all the way across. So now we are going to put our layer of soil again, and of course put in a little bit more. I'm not going to use my rocks at this point this time around. I had already shown you how to do that, and I just think that the plants are really going to be the showstopper in this particular one. So this time I'm actually not going to start with my largest plant because I think it would actually get in the way quite a bit. Oh, I'll introduce you to the plants. This one here is an asparagus fern. You can find these here in the summertime, actually. They're grown as annuals, but they also make fantastic houseplants. We have a little white variegated Tradescantia. You may know them by another name, but I will call them Wandering Dude for now. I think that is a great name for them. We have a little variegated English ivy. You can kind of see the pattern here. We have a lot of really nice variegation. And speaking of that, we have a little Schefflera arboricola that has a little bit of variegation on it too. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous plant. And then just a little baby aluminum plant as well. So you can see here that we really have like a lot of different shapes and sizes to play with, but they're all pretty much in the same color palette. So the one I think I'm going to start with is like our second tallest plant, and this is the Schefflera. Schefflera get quite tall and can be trees eventually. So we're going to find a spot for him where he can really grow up. So this one has a smaller root system, and you know what? That's okay. I'll show you this real quick. A thing about plants is that whenever they have these nice Ooh, a little unfocused. Maybe more like that. Okay, when they have these nice white roots all coming up, you can tell that that's new growth and that it's very healthy and that it's okay if the roots are quite small on there. So we're going to put him somewhere. And right now, I think I'm just going to place him right there, get him some soil to really stabilize him. And then, like I had mentioned before, you can also stabilize with moss or any of the rocks that you have around. So we'll add this a little bit. Wonderful. Okay. And then this is a little bit more difficult. So the Tradescantia and the ivy both are a little bit more trailers. So they're really going to take up a lot of the dirt space wherever we put them. So I think I'm going to start with the ivy here, and I'm going to put this one next to the Chef Lara, because if the Chef Lara is getting tall, then he doesn't need as much of the ground space, and then the ivy can come in and snatch out that ground space. So they have a really nice relationship to each other. So you can see our guy right here. And I'm going to tuck the little ivy just right next to him. If any of you have ivy at home, you'll probably notice that there are multiple propagations in there, and it is perfectly fine if you split those up. I personally like to keep them as a little bit more of a family. I think it looks a little bit nicer when they're fuller together, but make sure just to spread them out a little bit, just like how having dirt on the leaves will kind of prevent photosynthesis. Leaves covering each other up too much will also prevent them from growing too much. So just spread them out a little bit, give everybody their own room, and they should be good to grow. So let's see. Yeah, you can see our little bit of height there, and then a little bit of the ground crawlers. So I'm going to use these two next, but I can already tell that my big old asparagus fern is going to pop right here in the middle, and I think he's going to hang out up at the top a little bit. That'll be kind of our finishing touch on the piece. So I think I'm going to do the aluminum plant now, and these ones also can get rather tall, so I'm going to give him some room kind of across from the Chef Lara so that nobody is getting mad and competing at each other. So he's going to go on the other side of the ivy, and this one has 3 little pieces in there, so I'm going to give them each their own room. I really like putting the plants more on the outer side of the container. Glass does magnify the light just a titch, not an incredible amount, but I think just having them more near to the sides is really a great way to kind of let everybody get their own light as well. So we have our little 3 right about here, our ivy, and our big old chef hanging out. So we have about half of this done here. I think I'm going to put the Tradescantia. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3 pieces here. So I'm going to lay one of the Tradescantia pieces down. When you lay down a vining plant like that, a lot of the time, the next growth node, which is the spot where the leaf comes out, will also create new roots. Tradescantia are especially so good at propagating themselves. Actually, in one of our little herb jars right now, we had Tradescantia next to it, and a little piece fell off, and now it's in between the basil. They're just funny like that. So I'm going to lay both of these pieces down so that they can kind of root out and spread a little bit more. And then this tallest piece here, I am going to put standing straight up. I'm going to put that in between the other 2. Use my left hand here. Okay, add a little bit more soil. Yeah, wonderful. And then I just recommend always having the, what do you call it? The newest growth, like really facing upwards, because if you've noticed plants, typically they do grow the most upwards. So I'll show you this before we put our final guy in there. The common name for Tradescantia is wandering dude. Yeah, so have everybody in there. Let's see, you can see how we have the one pieces like laying down and then the one going up. Yeah, Tradescantia are known as wandering dude. There's another name for them as well that's more common, but I don't really like that one, so I call it wandering dude. All plants have a lot of different common names, and if you Google it, like a lot of things come up, so. Yeah, all right, time for our finishing touch right here. And I am going to bury him down a little bit deeper. Yes, wonderful. Yeah, and I just love that he's kind of poking out the top just a little bit here. That is so cute. Okay, maybe we'll give this one a little bit more room too. So everybody is here. And I really think that with this piece in particular, because we have like so much kind of soil hanging around, I think the decor is really going to shine in a larger container like this. So once again, we are going to start with the rocks, and I think I'm going to go about the same pattern of kind of placing it around the edges to give it a little bit more dynamic. But in this one, I think you can put like multiple groupings of the different decor around as well. And I'm not sure if it'll be enough to cover all of the dirt in particular, but we will see if there's some dirt covered. Maybe that's a little farm patch or something, you know. I always like to give kind of ideas to my creations. I don't know why I'm like that, but I like to imagine each one as kind of its own environment and ecosystem, maybe even country. So yeah, tuck those in right about there. Make sure it's not on top of this. Moss is going to be drier than the other one, and that is perfectly fine. When you do use the green moss, you may notice that it's just a tish dusty. That's perfectly normal. It's an organic material, and it does disintegrate just a tish. But when you eventually water them, anybody who has the green moss, I would just give them a little bit more water, maybe try to add some right on top of there, just so it gets a little bit more moisturized. Yeah, and then I am just adding this kind of all the way around, really spreading it out, using the most out of the material. And the reason that I chose a lot of white plants for this one in particular is because I'm using the green moss, and I really think the two of them contrast each other really nicely. I think the cool tones with the jade rocks and the green moss was our most popular kit as well. And of course, one of the amazing looking ones. If you don't have enough for the entire thing, just use up all of your decor in larger projects like this. I think that all of it will be used actually. So I'm going to use up the last of my rocks now, put those over there. And I think I'm finally going to use a whole thing of bark here. So I don't particularly have a plan for this one. I just really want to highlight the plants. And I think the brown bark is really going to be effective for that. So I would put it kind of underneath the leaves just to highlight them a little bit more, give it a really nice contrast as well. Maybe one piece over here, another over here, like a fallen log. Talked about a stump earlier, and now we have a log and maybe some other branches. Let's put this one over here. And then any other kind of decor you have. I have a lot of silly little trinkets around my home, whether they be like cute little beads or fairy garden items. And those are all really great things to put in these kind of containers, depending on how much size you have. So I'm pretty happy with this. I can show you guys here. Let's see, we have our nice rocks over here. Ooh, look at that. Yeah, and that asparagus fern is just loving life. That gorgeous variegated Schefflera, big old patch of moss right there. And everything is really just working in harmony in this piece. Everything will continue to grow. And I really bet that this big old asparagus fern will absolutely pop out. I bet he's gonna go just crazy. So that is all 3 of our containers here. 1 plant, 3 plant, and you can start to notice that it's getting like fuzzy in there. It's already starting to get a little bit more humid because of the moisture that we added. So once again, just remember to water everything in when you have it completed. And that is all of the material that I have prepared for you right now. Just a quick note to everyone, if you post on social media, remember to tag us at Baker Garden Gift, and we will probably shout you out on our story or something. We would love, love, love to see your pictures. And by we, I mean I would love to see what you made today with me. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, we have about 5 minutes left, and I can answer anything that you are curious about, or if you're wondering anything about the store, I can help you there too. Or even if you have a houseplant question, I'm the workshop and houseplant person here. So we can just chat for a little while, or you guys can tell me what some of your favorite vendors are from Unglued. Like I said, I went last night. We have 2 of the vendors there who sell products in our store. We have Do Good Candles and Rising Dawn Ceramics. They both sell in our store. Some other ones, Wildflower and Co. She had some really nice like little stickers and sweaters. And then the Plant Supply are people that we are always in contact with. They had really, really great stuff as well. And then, I mean, it was just so beautiful all the way around. One more of my favorites is the Honeybee Soap Company. They're always at the Red River Market too, and I really, really enjoy their products. I used one of their shampoo bars, and that was amazing too. Anybody else have any favorites possibly? I think I'm gonna take a drink of water here. Remember to stay hydrated. I'm probably gonna have a cup of coffee after this and look among these beautiful plants. There's nothing that I enjoy more in the morning than waking up and just kind of spending time with my plants as the birds are chirping outside. So happy that we're back in spring and that we have so much more warmth going on.
And if anyone wants to turn their camera on and show us what your terrarium turned out like, that would be fun to see too. We have one. Okay, there we go. That looks awesome. Thanks for sharing. Oh, the Knights have theirs. Very fun.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, this was so much fun. I love teaching workshops. So thank you everyone like so much. This makes me so happy.
Awesome. Oh, we have another one. There we go. Ta-da! That turned out so cute. These all look so great. Thank you so much, everyone who hopped on here this morning to come and craft with Audrey. And that was so awesome to have you. Thank you, Baker, for sponsoring this workshop and making it discounted for everyone to get crafty. And like she said, the fest is happening today at West Acres Mall. You can come check it out. And then on Sunday, it'll also be virtual. Online, we'll have that on the Unglued Craft Fest or ungluedmarket.com. You can see the whole list of all the fun there. So yeah, if you have any other questions, hop on here. Otherwise, we'll see you either in person here at West Acres today or online on Sunday. Awesome. Have a great day, everybody.
Wonderful. Yeah. Enjoy the weather.